Welcome again to another episode of The Way to Change. This episode will be a bit different because it is the uncut version of the first speech of change. And for this reason, the video quality is not the best because it was just my phone recording me for the whole route, so I have to zoom in a bit to see my climbing better. I used to do these things for like a proof that I climbed the route. So I put every attempt my phone on the ground, pointing at the whole route, so I can have the uncut version of the route itself. And this is the first part of change. The first boulder problem that is around 7C V9 that ends with a dynamic to a sloper, a slopey edge. That is after this toe hook from here. Then from here I rest a bit after clipping it, and from here we start the hardest part of change, the boulder problem that I forgot to mention in the previous video. I think it's around 8B plus boulder, so V13 V14, and it's quite different from Adams beta because I think the hardest part of Adams beta was to fit with his whole body in a small portion of rock, so he has to be very flexible, and then after he already has his foot up, his hardest move was to cross to a cream, while my hardest move was the swing. It would be interesting to do a video comparison of the two betas. Maybe in the next video I can add something like this. But for the moment, let's focus on the uncut footage of my ascent. From here I will start climbing again, and then I found this another little rest with my knee touching the rock, so I can rest a bit using just one arm. It was the last rest before the cracks. I set up a second camera on my attempt because I wanted to show better the cracks part. So yeah, I had this second camera just on the cracks. Now I can enlarge it to show better the hardest part of change. In this day, it was I think the 27th of August. I already been there for 21 days, so I tried the route for maybe 15 days, not counting the rest days, and I finally felt ready to do a real attempt. I think I did some real attempts in the previous days, but every attempt was a failure. I always fell in the cracks. One time going to the shoulder, and a couple of times, maybe more than a couple of times, swinging, and I wasn't able to hold the swing. But this day was the perfect day. Conditions were really good. I rested a day before this one, and I felt really comfortable on these weird moves. Now we can have a look on the second camera. Way better than the first camera, and the cracks. Matching this was really weird. I have to be really precise. And then the swing was the hardest part. It was hard to put my left foot high. I failed once. Second time was okay, and then was not over until this move. Here, I think 85% of the route was done, but it was not finished because I was obviously more tired than before, and there was some weird part in the upper part that I was afraid to fall. The rest here was not the best. I had to just shake a bit, and then there was a quite hard move to go to a big jug where I could rest a bit more. but I have to take advantage of every single rest of the route because I was already tired, and it was the first time I passed these cracks from the ground. This hold was very big. It was a good hold where I can rest, but the position was not the best because my feet were under the roof, so the position was a bit uncomfortable, but the hands were quite good. From here there was this good crack going to the right. You can see better with the first camera, with my phone here. The camera was fixed, nobody was filming, it was just on a tripod. Actually it was on a rock because I didn't have a tripod, so I cut my hands, but from the phone you can see the next part better. And I wanted to rest as much as I can because there is a single move that in the next part it was quite hard, and I think it was possible to fall there. Even if I never fell there, it was totally possible to fall after this part of the route. I think one of my best skill is to be able to rest 100% and be recovered, full recover after a good rest. I experienced this in a lot of routes where some other climbers were still pumped. After a good rest, I was totally fresh. I noticed this in competition and on rock climbing too. And for this reason, I think change fits a lot my style because it alternates a lot of hard part with good rest. So in the rest I could take advantage of my climbing skills and be fresh for the next boulder problem. I know I'm taking a lot of time here, but the video is the uncut, so I cannot cut any part of the route. So you have to watch the whole route with the whole rest. Take a seat because I'm going to climb for I think at least 15 minutes the first part, but if you compare to the second part, which took me the whole route more than 1 hour, is I can call a short route. Yes, because this is just the first pitch of change that is around 20-25 meters, and just the second one is around 30 meters, and the total is 55 meters. The whole route is very long, and even if this route seems long, this first part seems long, the second one is gigantic. And from here I move on this crack with still a good rest. The hands were a bit worse than before, but the position with the body was better with this heel hook. I rested a bit and then I had to go because my left heel hook was soaring. My entire leg was soaring from the position, so I had to go. I preferred to rest a bit more, but it was impossible, so I have to clip the next quick draw from here, and from here there was the next hard part that I was a bit afraid of. But a good technique is to clip before, then go back to rest, so when I climb the next section I don't have to stop for clipping. This is a good technique that you can use in a lot of routes. Resting a bit longer, and when my legs really feel really bad, I had to go. The grade of this single pitch, I think it's correct to say is 9A plus / 9B, because the first cracks is really hard, and it took me around 15 days of climbing to sand it, and I think compared to other routes it fits well in this grade range. While the second part of the route, which you will see in the next episode, is graded around 9A, which you have to climb after climbing this 9A/B. And from here I will start climbing again. You have this long move with the right hand, and then a side pull with the left, and this really hard cross that I was very close to fall here. And after this hold that was very good, 95% of the route was complete. From here I was quite sure I would climb the route, the first pitch of change. And actually in the whole route I changed my beta here, because I have to do another thing, that is the rope change that you ask me a lot. I will explain better in the video of the full change. Because here the rope goes through the roof of the first pitch, and if I climb the whole way up to the second anchor with the rope passing through the roof, the rope drag would be too much for clipping, and it would be really hard to climb. The rope will just pull me down. So I have to do this rope change that I will explain better in the next videos, because it's less complicated than it seems, but it could be dangerous if you do it in the wrong way. So I was already expert in this rope change. I did a couple of times in some other routes here in Arco in Massone, and but if you do it wrong, it could be really dangerous. You have to do it right. So I will explain better, but my advice is to try to avoid as much as you can, and do it just if it's necessary, and it's necessary in very few routes in the world, I think. And this was the first time I passed the cracks and climbed until the first anchor, and I actually climbed this part and this route 4 times in total, because I had this go when I climbed the first pitch, and then I decided to stop at the first anchor, because I just studied the second part just once or twice, not very well, and it was helpless and useless to try to climb the second part without watching it very well. And so I decided to stop when I reached the first chain here, and then I climbed twice for doing some attempts on the full change, where I failed on the second cracks, and then I climbed it the 4th time when I climbed the whole route change, and where I never failed, and I reached the second chain of the route. And this part here is already in common with the Muy Verdes, the 8C of the second episode of The Way to Change. And you can see, maybe in that video you can see better this part, but it's not very interesting. It's quite easy. I don't know how much it can be, maybe 7A, 7B could be, just this part, but compared to the rest of the route, it's very easy, even if 7A or 7B could be not that easy. Here I was climbing, approaching to the chain. I was quite confident to do the route and not to fall, because I already studied this part really well, because even if it was easy for the rest of the route, I was afraid to do some mistakes, and maybe a foot could slip, or some holes were even wet, so you have to avoid some wet holes. But at the end I never failed on this part of the route, fortunately. And with this video we'll end the first part of change, and in the next videos I will focus more on the second cracks of the second part of the route, which is a very long and technical route with some really bouldery parts, but still a lot of endurance until the top, where I risk to fail many times. And you will see that the rock completely changed from the first part to the second one. I think the very last part of change, or the full change, is has the best rock of the cave, I think. and totally different from this style of rock here. And this was the clip before the anchor, where I attached the static rope to go to check out the second part, and from here I clipped the chain of the first pitch of change.